मुस्लिम वुमेन स्टडी सर्कल एंड व्हाट वी एम टू डू थ्रू इट। तो हम लोगों का ये बुक क्लब ये पर्पस सर्व करता है कि हम लोग कुछ कलेक्टिव ऑब्जेक्टिव्स है जो आई एम श्योर वी ऑल फील कि देर आर सम थिंग्स वी वांट टू sort of do collectively। तो इट इज़ अ स्पेस फॉर अस टू एक्सप्रेस आवर सेल्स। हम लोग अपने ओपिनियंस को क्लियरली और विदाउट जजमेंट के डर हम लोग अपना ओपिनियंस यहाँ पर एक्सप्रेस करें, बी इट फॉर लीजर या फिर अगर हम लोग even if you want to rant about something that is relevant to what we're talking about, or just discuss what has been on our mind, what has come up जब हम लोग ये book पढ़ रहे हैं। तो it is very you are more than welcome to do that। तो a space to decolonize our physical and online spaces and our conversations, which is a very important mental exercise जो हम लोग इस activity के through collectively कर सकते हैं। deliberations within the community and of course magnifying our voices। book club का when we meet for the book club, the intention is always that जितने लोग ज्वाइन किए हैं हम सब एक एक दूसरे से बात करें, अपने पॉइंट्स को रखें, अपने ओपिनियंस एक्सप्रेस करें, इवन इफ वी आर नॉट वेरी कॉन्फिडेंट अबाउट दैट इज आई वुड आर्ग्यू दैट इज द इंटायर पॉइंट। जरूरी नहीं है कि हम लोग जो बोल रहे हैं वो करेक्ट हो या फिर सब कोई अग्री करे, बट इट इज़ अ स्पेस टू हैव अ हेल्दी कॉन्वर्सेशन एंड होपफुली हम लोग कोई भी मीटिंग जब ज्वाइन करते हैं, व्हेन वी गो बैक, आई होप दैट वी गो बैक विद अ लॉट मोर देन वी केम विद, ऑल ऑफ अस। एंड बुक क्लब का फंक्शनिंग ऐसे चलता है कि फॉर एनीवन हु इज न्यू या जस्ट टू रिफ्रेश आवर माइंड, हम लोग हर महीने एक बुक चूज करते हैं और वो बुक 3 या 4 हमारे सजेशंस में से, एंड बाय द वे सजेशंस भी आप लोगों की तरफ से ही आता है। दैट इज़ अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट ऑफ इट इज़ वेल कि हम सब बुक सजेस्ट करें एंड देन वी डू अ पोल टू डिसाइड कि उस पर्टिकुलर मंथ के लिए हम कौन सा बुक पढ़ रहे हैं। एंड देर इज़ नो प्रेशर टू फिनिश द बुक। आई नो हम सब अपनी ज़िंदगी में बहुत मसरूफ़ है, बहुत सारे रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज़ हैं, तो अगर हम लोगों ने पूरा बुक पढ़ लिया तो अमेजिंग, देर इज़ नथिंग बेटर देन दैट। बट अगर ना पढ़ पाए, इट शुडेंट स्टॉप यू फ्रॉम ज्वाइनिंग द कॉन्वर्सेशन। आप फिर भी हमारे साथ जुड़े इस मीटिंग में। अगर आपने 10 पेज भी पढ़ा है तो यू आर मोर देन वेलकम टू से कि उन 10 पेजेस में से आप क्या अपना ओपिनियन स्टेट करना चाहते हैं या आप क्या शेयर करना चाहते हैं उसके बारे में। द ओनली इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग इज़ दैट वी हैव अ रिस्पेक्टफुल डिस्कशन एंड हम लोग एक दूसरे की बात सुने और अपने खुद के ओपिनियंस भी विदाउट एनी फियर ऑफ जजमेंट एक्सप्रेस करें। तो if anyone wants to say anything before we even start with this, more than welcome to say it। and I know कभी कभी unmute करके बोलने में अगर there is any issue, then आप प्लीज़ चैट बॉक्स का इस्तेमाल करें। जिस भी तरीके से आप अपने आप को एक्सप्रेस करना चाहते हैं आप करें। अगर म्यूट नहीं करना तो there are other ways also to do it, feel free to use all of them। तो the slides I have prepared for this month's conversation, they are only talking points। at any point अगर आपको is like even if you've not read the book but you read something on the screen and it makes you want to share something, please do। वो like we are trying to not make this a thing, a burden on ourselves कि अच्छा अगर हम नहीं पढ़े तो हम क्या ही बोलें। बस आराम से अपने आप को एक्सप्रेस करिए। ये सब कुछ जो है ये हमारे लिव्ड एक्सपीरियंसेस से भी बहुत रेलेवेंट है, पर्टिकुलरली इस बुक के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में। तो आई एम श्योर अगर आपने नहीं भी पढ़ा है तो भी आपके पास हो सकता है कुछ हो बोलने के लिए। तो लेट्स स्टार्ट विद कंटेक्चुअलाइजिंग द बुक। हम ये बुक जिस वक्त पब्लिश हुआ था आई थिंक 2004 में, तो वो बहुत ही sort of वो टाइम था जब 9/11 was very fresh in everyone's minds, and उस वक्त the context was of the invasion of Iraq US से। तो महमूद ममदानी writes this book as sort of response to the political climate, उस वक्त का situation और उस वक्त जिस टाइप के narratives और dialogues emerge कर रहे थे about the Muslim world, about America's involvement in other countries and their political situations. तो sort of 9/11 को एज अ सेंट्रल एक इवेंट लिया गया है जिसके अराउंड फिर और ऐसे बहुत सारे एग्जांपल्स हैं, नॉट जस्ट 9/11 बट द इन्वेजन ऑफ इराक एंड देन अदर कंट्रीज इवन इन लैटिन अमेरिका जहाँ पर द यूएस हैज डिस्प्लेस्ड एग्जिस्टिंग गवर्नमेंट्स. तो वो कॉन्टेक्स्ट है और मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंटली कोल्ड वॉर का कॉन्टेक्स्ट है कि जो भी इस टाइम पर हो रहा था was very clearly linked to the Cold War, and both the US and Russia were functioning on the global platform उस हिसाब से. So it also Mahmood Mamdani also questions the ideological soundness of the war on terror. War on terror, I'm sure we have heard the phrase itself been be used to death. मतलब अभी भी it is very relevant, and there are still discourses and political conversations around it. तो उसके बारे में the author emphasizes जिस तरीके से उसको decontextualize किया गया था in a way that favored the US and the narrative the US wanted to build. It is a very isolated incident that we talk about. So the author is trying to sort of make it less decontextualized कि उसके आगे पीछे क्या हुआ था जिसके वजह से वो event भी and the entire time period sort of becomes clearer to us. The collective amnesia among populations that made this rhetoric acceptable was that we were like on the global platform it was made so कि हम लोग question ना करें कि जो हो रहा है वो क्यों हो रहा है, but also that किसी चीज़ का ये consequence है, वो angle sort of ऐसा that we don't really think of it that way. Because if we think of it that way, then it takes us back to, which is what the author does, he takes us back to the events that happened, the involvement of the US in a lot of overthrown governments and other countries ka displaced situations. So I think it's important also to know a bit about the author himself, and I'm sure हम लोगों को at least we've heard of Mahmood Mamdani, that I'm sure of, and we also know, are we familiar with his works. So he's a historian of imperialism, and वो Columbia University में I don't know if this is a current thing, but that is where he was placed as a professor. And उनका works engage with post-colonial theory, just which is sort of emphasizing present day context में relevance of colonial and post-colonial events and the sort of narratives and belief systems and ideologies that emerged उस time पे. He was a Ugandan academic, and this, when I went to like sort of search about him, it was very interesting to note कि एक at least एक personal front पे it seemed like a very sort of displaced and stressful first few decades of his life, because he was born in Bombay, raised in Uganda, and then he was I think exile is not the right word, but उनको for some reason Uganda से when he was doing his PhD उनको निकाल दिया गया था by the government itself for critiquing the government or something of that sort. So then he came to the UK, I think. फिर युगांडा में एक गवर्नमेंट चेंज हुआ तो वो वापस गए युगांडा, एंड देन समथिंग एल्स हैपेंड, देयर वाज सम अदर इशू, एंड देन ही केम टू द यूएस. So it was a lot of that, and the reasons for the displacement always, जितना I have read, is that he was critiquing the governments there. So the key arguments in the book, when you sort of take all of the chapters together, one of the most important ones is किस तरीके से महमूद ममदानी defines terrorism. The way he explains and defines it is very, very different from the way we or people in general understand it. So especially when we talk about quote unquote Islamic terrorism, which is, of course, ये phrase हम लोग को हर वक्त काफ़ी टाइम से सुनने में आ रहा है, and it is also used to justify a lot of things. Islamic terrorism as a phenomena has been used to justify invasions of countries, bombing of cities, general everyday Islamophobia. So all of that comes from the reification of Islamic terrorism as a phenomena itself. तो महमूद हमदानी इस चीज़ को question कर रहे हैं, and he's saying that the kind of terrorism that we see in this context, जिसको इस्लाम से लिंक किया गया है time and time again, इसका रूट जो है, इसका पैदाइश का जो कॉन्टेक्स्ट था वो पॉलिटिकल और कल्चरल है, सॉरी पॉलिटिकल है, कल्चरल और रिलीजियस नहीं है, जबकि हम लोगों के लिए एटलीस्ट इन जनरल लोगों के लिए it's very very normal to link it to Islam itself and to link it to Islam by saying कि ये sort of Islamic teachings से derive किया गया है. तो उसको again एक बहुत decontextualized explanation होता है उसका, जिसको महमूद ममदानी is arguing against, where he says कि this is not something जो जब से इस्लाम establish हुआ है तब से this Islamic terrorism has been a problem. That is not the case. It is only in the past century or so, end of colonization and emergence of independent post-colonial nations, जिसके context में इस type का terrorism has emerged. And then of course we go into the details of why that is, जिसके through the US emerges as a very important contributor to it. So he talks about the weaponization of Islam, which was very interesting कि कोल्ड वॉर के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में इस्लाम को ऑलमोस्ट ऐसे यूज किया गया था टू फाइट द प्रॉक्सी वॉर्स. तो प्रॉक्सी वॉर्स का कॉन्सेप्ट ड्यूरिंग द कोल्ड वॉर इज कि अगर यूएस और रशिया का वॉर चल रहा है तो दे हैव नॉट, ऑफ कोर्स the whole point of the Cold War was that they did not openly fight, but almost outsourcing the fighting to other nations, which become the battlegrounds for these two countries to tussle over. And also that the US made sort of political calls and decisions on the international platform जिससे वो इस्लाम को कम्युनिज्म के खिलाफ यूज कर सके, उसको ऐसे यूज कर सकें कि जिस कंट्री में द यूएस सपोर्ट्स कोट एंड कोट इस्लामिक टेररिज्म्स और अपराइजिंग्स ऑफ एनी सॉर्ट, वो जगह पे ऐसा गवर्नमेंट एस्टैब्लिश हो जो वेरी लाइक दे वुड आर्ग्यू इट वाज लाइक द ओन पीपल्स मूवमेंट, लाइक वो एक ग्रास रूट मूवमेंट इमर्ज होके आ रहा है जो कि उस कंट्री में एक इंडिपेंडेंस के बाद गवर्नमेंट एस्टैब्लिश हो रहा है. बट वेरी ऑफन क्या, ऑलमोस्ट एवरी सिंगल टाइम इट वाज द यूएस जो सपोर्ट कर रहे थे सर्टन फैक्शंस विद इन दैट कंट्री. एंड इस तरीके से कि इससे पहले कि रशिया इन्वॉल्व हो सके इन द on in that context, वो वहाँ पे एक एंटी कम्युनिस्ट गवर्नमेंट बिठा सके, सो दैट विदाउट एक्चुअली फाइटिंग अ वॉर वो इंटरनेशनल प्लेटफॉर्म पे अपना कैपिटलिस्ट एजेंडा को थोड़ा एक strength दे सकें. So for this, Islam was weaponized. The other key argument is in the name of the book itself, Muslims as good versus bad, जो कि एक, of course he says it's a very problematic characterization कि Muslims can either be good, which is when you say good उसका मतलब है कि वो ऐसे मुसलमान हैं या ऐसे कम्युनिटी ऑफ मुस्लिम्स हैं या ऐसे नेशन ऑफ मुस्लिम्स हैं जो यूएस की फॉरेन पॉलिसी एंड उनके जनरल आइडियोलॉजी से अग्री करते हैं. So if as a Muslim nation or as a Muslim individual you are not questioning the actions of the US in the Middle East or in any other context, then that is a good Muslim or a Muslim that is not vilifying the West, जो Western power के खिलाफ एटलीस्ट सवाल भी नहीं उठा रहा है. And then a bad Muslim or a book. And the last key argument which I found very interesting was, and इसके बारे में हम पहले नहीं सोचे थे. अच्छा, by the way, आप लोग at any point please unmute yourself if you want to say anything. Even if I'm saying something, it's completely fine to interrupt. or put it in the chat box, whatever you prefer. So, lastly, state responses to terrorism is a mirror image. So what Mahmood Mamdani is saying is कि both terrorism and state responses to terrorism are essentially the same thing. वो दोनों में कोई बहुत खास फर्क नहीं है, बिकॉज ही इज सेइंग कि उनका टेररिज्म का एंड किसी कंट्री के रिस्पॉन्स का एट द कोर बेसिक्स सेम है. सो दे विल बोथ सॉर्ट ऑफ रैशनलाइज कि अगर बहुत सारे सिविलियंस का डेथ हो रहा है तो उस चीज़ को टेररिज्म तो ऑफ कोर्स जस्टिफाई करेगा ही, बट किसी नेशन का quote unquote fight against terrorism will also justify that, the way it was done in Iraq or in other places. And this interestingly is also relevant for other nations where this happened even after this. So if you're dropping bombs from a distance, if you're not physically there on a battleground, तो जिस टाइप का assaults launch होता है, they are not discriminating between people who you specifically want to target and civilians or children or women who maybe just caught in the crossfire. तो terrorism का counter is also equally destructive, particularly जिस तरीके से किया जा रहा था उस टाइम पे. तो collective punishment, I guess we could call it, is how it manifests itself. Again, very similar to terrorism itself. एंड इस चीज को जिस रिटोरिक में प्रेजेंट किया जाता है वो है ऑफ डिह्यूमनाइजेशन, कि अगर हम एंड दिस इज पर्टिकुलरली ऑफ कोर्स व्हाट द यूएस डज, कि अगर हम किसी कंट्री में टेररिज्म फाइट कर रहे हैं तो उसका ऑलमोस्ट पहला स्टेप समझ लो कि आई मस्ट फर्स्ट डिह्यूमनाइज दैट एंटायर नेशन, the people of that nation, so that when the assaults are actually launched, of course no one is going to then be mourning them as much, क्योंकि वो argument ये बन जाता है कि ये कौम ही ऐसा है that we have to eradicate it or something equally drastic of that sort. तो ideological grounds पे difference है, but the way they carry out their work is very similar. And the argument of moral purity is also, it also ends up being embroiled in this, कि I am protecting my nation or the world itself from something that is intrinsically evil. So in this case, that intrinsic evil becomes Islam, or the way Islam is manifesting itself in those nations, which is of course the argument that the US would be making. So अब हम लोग chapter wise जाते हैं, and at this point I don't exactly recall who had picked what chapter, but जैसे जैसे chapters आ रहे हैं, if you have read that one, please feel free to say anything that you want to express about it, और अगर कोई ऐसा point है जो यहाँ है या नहीं है but you want to talk about it, please do. So chapter 1 से at least my reading of it made me sort of focus on two main things, which is cultural determinism and unrealistic binaries in the way the US was portraying Muslims. So Mamdani says cultural determinism is something that is of course very problematic, because it is cultural determinism के ही आर्ग्यूमेंट के थ्रू आप ये बोल पाओगे कि एक पूरा सोसाइटी या एक पूरा रिलीजन या एक पूरा नेशन ही लाइक अपने मोस्ट नेचुरल स्टेट में वो एक बहुत ख़राब और बहुत निचले तबके का है. तो इन दिस कॉन्टेक्स्ट ही ऑल्सो मैंशंस कि अब post the Second World War, during the Cold War, the Middle East emerges as this sort of ground for this argument. उसके पहले भी ये same argument था, but it was focused more on Africa. So it was the African people that were seen as savages or seen as people जिसको आप सिखा नहीं सकते और फिक्स नहीं कर सकते हैं। उनको अपने खुद के और अपने नेशन के सेफ्टी के लिए आपको कंप्लीटली इरेडिकेट करना पड़ेगा, और समथिंग दैट ड्रास्टिक एंड दैट प्रॉब्लमैटिक। तो he argues against cultural determinism. He says it's very important to identify the fact that violence cannot be linked to any religion or culture is तरीके से that we say that is the reason for that violence to occur. So he's countering the idea that violence is rooted in Islamic culture. Instead he says कि हम लोगों को इसका political context देखना होगा, क्योंकि अगर हम लोग इसका पॉलिटिकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट देख रहे हैं then it emerges that there is a political cause for it, there is a history behind it, and जो प्रेजेंट कॉन्टेक्स्ट में पावर इम्बैलेंस है वो किसी रीजन से आया है, वो हमेशा से, और लेट से जब से इस्लाम एस्टैब्लिश हुआ है दुनिया में तब से नहीं है, इट इज समथिंग वेरी रिसेंट. So when we hold culture responsible for violence, which actually has a political root, it is problematic because we are also not being able to address कि actual issue क्या है. तो फिर वो एक जितना भी in depth conversation हो जाए, it remains surface level because we are not being able to identify the reason for it. And the second thing is the public amplification of unrealistic binaries. Again, we would all know that this classification of a good Muslim and a bad Muslim is counterproductive. If anything, it is holding us back from having realistic, reasonable conversations about these geopolitical issues. So culture talk is a phenomena that he says we must counter, which is हम लोग कल्चर को सेंटर में रखते हैं of this sort of conversation that we're having. So किसी sort of violence या किसी uprising या किसी national sort of issue का cause when we are finding, we are more prone to point to culture for it rather than उस particular time का political context, which is again what was done in the Middle East constantly in all of these nations. So that was what is sort of most obvious in chapter 1. And then chapter 2 mein he goes into more details about specific examples. So for example, chapter 3 mein jitna bhi conversation hai, it happens around the context of Afghanistan and how the US sort of trained and funded the Mujahideen and then sort of abandoned it at some point. So chapter 2 में Cold War के context में the emergence of proxy warfare, which is just that what we mentioned earlier कि the US and the USSR or Russia are fighting their wars, but through the battleground of third world countries or recently decolonizing nations. तो अपने ऑलमोस्ट लाइक अपने वॉर्स को आउटसोर्स कर देना, यू नो, कि द वे एवरीथिंग एल्स इज हैज बीन आउटसोर्स्ड, द वे लेबर हैज बीन आउटसोर्स्ड टू द ग्लोबल साउथ, एंड सेम तरीके से वायलेंस हैज आल्सो बीन आउटसोर्स्ड टू द ग्लोबल साउथ, कि द sorry. Yeah, so proxy warfare mein, the US, in the context of Afghanistan, the author says that the United States did not just support the Afghan jihad, it helped transform political Islam into a transnational militarized movement. It was a deliberate Cold War policy and not an unintended side effect. तो जिस तरीके का proxy war was being fought, it is not that this emerged as a byproduct of it, but this was literally the intention of it, to destabilize countries and then have a capitalist regime there that is in favor of the US rather than Russia. Yeah, so all of this was being done to curb communist ideological expansion, and जो भी independent nations का government established हो रहा था, उसको quickly overthrowing them to put in a new one that favors the US. The Nixon doctrine is also talked about in lots of detail in this chapter. जिसका which is what was, I guess, prefacing the proxy warfare. कि because this was the Nixon doctrine was right after the Vietnam War, जिसका issue ये था that the US had lost the Vietnam War, and not just lost it, but a lot of financial loss as well when they were trying to fight the Vietnam War. So what they decided after that, which was put down in the Nixon doctrine, was that US aligned causes के लिए allied troops को support किया जाएगा, but when you are doing this for other nations, the US will only do it through the provision of money or armaments. So at the most, the US can provide these things to nations for a fight in favor of the capitalist cause, but उससे ज़्यादा US army के troops नहीं provide किए जाएंगे, because they had done that already in Vietnam and suffered consequences, and it did not make sense for them to do that anymore. So after the Nixon doctrine, जो ज़्यादा normalize हो गया था, was that until the Vietnam War, the US troops were going to countries and fighting the wars for the US. But उसके बाद से इसको एक बहुत subtle way में किया जा रहा था, without like of course they would send troops sometimes, but the intention was कि local areas में वहीं के लोगों को recruit करके वहाँ पे वो in fighting, like as in like वहाँ पे ही वो wars लड़े जाएं. तो what it would do is, one, financially it was more feasible for the US, but more importantly, इसको अगर जिस तरीके से the CIA would do it बहुत covert way में, it would also end up कि अगर कुछ later there is an issue, or even in the present moment, the US would more often than not be held accountable for it, क्योंकि public opinion का ज़रूरत नहीं है. When you're sending your troops to fight a war, it is a discussion, it is a deliberation on whether or not it should happen, and if it does happen, how much do we invest, how much do we sort of focus on it. But if you are doing it without telling your own population, if you are doing it ऐसे almost in a secretive way, तो आपको ये सारी चीज़ों के बारे में सोचना ही नहीं पड़ रहा है. तो आप ना तो अपने खुद के गवर्नमेंट को, और इन द केस ऑफ द US अपने सेनेट में आपको इसके बारे में कॉन्वर्सेशंस और डिबेट्स करने की ज़रूरत भी नहीं है, और पब्लिक से पूछना तो आप भूल ही जाइए. So the covert operations, the entire point was, like it says here, violence without political repercussions and easily deniable operations. The CIA would not be answerable to anyone, and there was no accountability for what was being done, क्योंकि first of all, the public opinion was not in a factor at all, because the public did not know very often. And then the other thing was, because it was, and in this context, the whole drug trade thing was very relevant, जो कि इस chapter में the author talks about also, कि the way the US financed these covert operations was through like drug trade. So particularly in Latin America, but also elsewhere, कि उस illicit trade के through, again, that was also not very that was not legal at all, but the way it was done was to fund all of these covert operations. So not only were you that is an entire different conversation, but just to mention it, not only were you destabilizing Latin American and other countries through this drug trade, you were, the money that you got from it was being used to then carry out these covert operations, जिसके लिए ना तो आपको सेनेट से बजट का डिस्कशंस करना पड़ रहा है, ना ही आपको कोई अकाउंटेबिलिटी प्रेजेंट करना पड़ रहा है. And then in chapter 3, so far what the author is doing is एक बहुत ही ज़्यादा solid context बिठाया जा रहा है, which is the conversation around the dichotomy of the Muslim being either pigeonholed as a good Muslim or a bad Muslim is something that is, of course, overarching throughout the book. But we all know that as a phenomena, but the way it came to be, wo is very obscure. So the entire context behind it, and not just the post-colonial context, but also linking it to the colonial past itself. Ki when countries are being freed from colonial rule, the kind of instability that occurs, and then how the US is taking advantage of that unstable situation, and placing sort of almost puppet governments in a lot of cases, jo, which will do the US ka bidding. So it is all of this was sort of the intent for it, and the way it was done was by the way we said it in the beginning, using Islam and Islamic terrorism as a almost a weaponized ideology. Yeah, so again in chapter 3, the weaponization of Islam as a counter-communist entity. The entire point of doing this in the Middle East was, if the US is the first to quote unquote enter and be part of the political context in that region, it will deter the entry of Russia. Or even if Russia enters, the US already has a stronghold there. So the US support to the Mujahideen in Afghanistan was very intentionally done and not very subtly done, because he does mention in the book that the Reagan government was very vocal about it and very supportive of the Mujahideen. So there are quotes from Ronald Reagan himself where he says that the Mujahideen are like the founding, the way, like he equates them to the founding fathers of the US. He says these are the founding fathers of Afghanistan and the Middle East at large. So for a long time that was a very, like it is obviously documented and well known that it was done by the US, and they were very much in favor of arming the Mujahideen and supporting them throughout. So the Islamic militancy in this region, the point he tries to make is that Islamic militancy in this region was not a grassroots phenomena, which is something that we hear time and again in sort of general conversations and also in mass media, that it did not emerge from the ground up. It was not something that came from the people itself. Rather, it was something that was almost facilitated by the US, because there were, of course, the difference Mahbub makes between political Islam and the sort of cultural terrorism wala argument is that the former was a very normal expression of a cultural identity, which was used to then try and decolonize a region or establish their own independent governments. So that was a very acceptable, I would say, way of expressing and using culture and religion to unify a population. But ye jo tha, the Mujahideen that the US was supporting, the US did it in such a way that it was for the purpose of destabilizing the region. And a quote from this chapter: the CIA was key to the forging of the link between Islam and terror in Central Asia, and to giving radical Islamists international reach and ambition, which was again done by their own funding. They were the ones providing the money, the armaments, the training, all of that. So it was something that was very brazenly done by the US. And then again, later in this chapter, or I think in the next chapter, he mentions that when the time came for like there was political unrest, and it one might say it was the time for the US to back the Mujahideen and actually support them. The US sort of let themselves out, and so as long as it was serving their purpose, it was done to bolster up US control in the region. Produced during this time, in Afghanistan was then, it was almost like the author says that this was almost like an experimental ground for the US. Ki, after the Vietnam War and all of that, they were trying out something new. They were trying out the proxy wars and um, involvement, but not with military power directly. So the way this worked out, it directly fed into like later uh, activities of then supporting the Al Qaeda and 9/11 itself, because these became the byproducts of the way the Cold War proxy wars were being fought. And the US ka reliance on uh, these covert operations was a lot more during this time than it was previously. And not just that, but it also set the ground for the way wars would be fought in the future, which we even see right now. I mean, again, we wouldn't call it a war, but even in the Israel-Palestine conflict, the way the oppressors are relying on fighting from a distance. So drone strikes and the operations that you do not require people to be on the ground fighting, and you can create greater destruction without physical involvement. All of this was, um, so the author says all of this was uh, first tried out in this context of Afghanistan. And then, has anyone read chapter 3 or 4? And if you have anything to say, please do. Okay, yeah. Um, So then in chapter 4, the tone changes a little bit, because now the conversation is about overt aggression. इसके पहले तक the US was very focused on fighting proxy wars, but 9/11 के बाद the US का involvement in other regions and their invasion in some situations was very overt and brazen and not at all subtle the way it was being done इसके पहले तक. So overt aggression में again, the way it is for any sort of overt aggression and invasion, उसको morally correct दिखाने के लिए you have to vilify the people you are doing it to. You have to dehumanize the people you are doing it to make your own job easier. So of course that is what the US did again. And the argument that they were bringing democracy to these nations is very well known, and it is also very reminiscent of colonial arguments. The way we know कि colonies के बारे में ये आर्ग्यूमेंट दिया जाता था that we are civilizing them, या फिर we are bringing them out from darkness to the light. We're giving them these newer inventions and उन लोगों का कंट्री का डेवलपमेंट हम लोग कर रहे हैं. वो आर्ग्यूमेंट जो कॉलोनाइजेशन के टाइम पे भी यूज होता था, द सेम इज समवॉट recycled in these post-colonial contexts, and इसको morally justify किया जा रहा है by saying that these countries are not democratic, these countries are in that sense problematic because they don't have, the people are not free there. तो ये बोल के that we are bringing them democracy, the overt aggression and invasions were carried out. And in this context, the role of sanctions was talked about a little bit in this chapter, जो कि was a little confusing to me at first, but then what the author says is कि the US was backing Saddam Hussein during the Iran-Iraq war in the 80s because they wanted to curb Iran's Islamic revolution. And again, this is something that the US failed to do. कि Iran's Islamic revolution did happen, and the way it happened, it sort of undermined the US arguments against Islam and its quote unquote terroristic expressions. But once Iraq invaded Kuwait, US got the opportunity to sort of launch a full-scale war. And this was done in spite of its history of supporting Saddam Hussein. So again, it is not necessarily the way you are bolstering up a person or a group within a country is very heavily dependent on what they are doing for you, for the US. So as long as supporting Saddam Hussein was beneficial for the US, it was done. And the moment वो उनके internal sort of uh, क्या बोलते हैं उसको, उनके लिए beneficial नहीं था, they not only stopped doing it, but they completely turned against him. So the quote from this chapter is, the US supported Saddam Hussein with chemical weapons, materials, and intelligence. The US provided these to Saddam Hussein and then later bombed him for using them. So you are providing the context and the material and the funding for a sort of government to come into power, and then once that is no longer beneficial for you, you are the one who is again destabilizing that region by fighting against that same person that you propped up in the first place. So then chapter 5 and 6 are more abstract in the sense that इधर बहुत ही जो अभी normalized ideologies and narratives है उनको question किया जा रहा है, and the way chapter 3 and 4 had very specific examples of Afghanistan and other nations, 5 and 6 also have examples, but ये ज़्यादा like ideologically leaning है with less emphasis on the historical events themselves. So chapter 5 में जो सबसे important question पूछा जा रहा है is who speaks for the Muslims? Because so far if you're making this binary of good Muslim and bad Muslim, who are then, not only are we asking who are the good Muslims, but we're also asking who are the spokespersons for these good Muslims, quote unquote. So यहाँ पे political Islam and Islamic fundamentalism का distinction the author makes, and he says कि ये distinction ज़रूरी है because they are not only are they two completely different things, but political Islam is secularly rooted and it is a politically motivated ideology. So it is not something that is religious at its core. It is, we can say, it is using religion to rally people for the cause. कि अगर आप you are sympathetic to the cause if you connect to it. So for those reasons, one might use Islam to sort of get people together in the context, but it is being done, or the ideology is being expressed for political causes. And he says that the term political Islam is much preferred over Islamic fundamentalism, because Islamic fundamentalism वो phrase में ही है, आप that kind of terror and that kind of violence and that kind of instability you are linking to the religion itself. But when you say political Islam, it's less, it becomes easier for us to incriminate the US and hold them accountable for their actions in this region, because political Islam का context जो है वो वेस्ट का रोल इग्नोर नहीं करता, और it is like this sort of a conversation would make it easier for people to think critically and question the role of the West rather than save them from any accountability. Because when we say Islamic fundamentalism, we say it is because of Islam that this region is unstable, or it is because of Islam that these terror organizations exist. When we are saying that, the US is nowhere in the picture. हम लोगों को सोचना भी नहीं पड़ रहा है कि कोई इसका external factor क्या है, इसमें US का क्या रोल है, वो सवाल ही नहीं उठ रहा है. Which is why political Islam is a much more reasonable sort of way to phrase this conversation. So who speaks for the Muslim में again, there is no answer, but the way to think of it is, इतना foreign intervention हुआ है and इतना specific curation of Muslim voices हुआ है to serve Western purposes, that the pluralistic voices and the multiplicity of the Islamic identity has been suppressed. Whether there are people, because of course again Islam and the political identity that can rally around it is not a monolith. It is not something जो कभी change नहीं होता and there are no disagreements with it. It is not that. So the kind of political interventions that were happening, it suppressed these multiple voices. And in this context, the role of sanctions was important as well, because hello, I hope I'm audible. Yeah. So the kind of Islamic extremism that people talk about, through this sort of a critical analysis of the situation, it becomes more apparent to us that it is a response to colonialism and to post-colonial context, rather than something that has existed for thousands of years, because it has not. And the importance of identifying and naming the fact that the Islamic identity and the Muslim identity is not a singular one. So it is important to identify that, and these are sort of the key things that are being discussed in chapter 5. And then the last chapter, we come to the last chapter, where Mahmood Mamdani is defining terrorism, and oh yeah, defining terrorism. So he says that terrorism is not. This is not a direct quote, but he does say that terrorism is not an issue that is only to be looked at legal and criminal standpoint से, but इसको assess करने के लिए इसका historical context देखना बहुत बहुत ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि उसके बिना if we do it without the historical context, then terrorism को essentialize करना बहुत आसान हो जाता है, और उसको naturalize करके if we don't have the historical context, then उसको naturalize करके history में पीछे की तरफ पोजिट करना भी बहुत आसान हो जाता है, बिकॉज अगर हम लोग उसका हिस्टोरिकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट नहीं देख रहे हैं, तो ये बहुत आसान हो जाता है बोलना कि ये हमेशा हमेशा से ही ऐसे था, और ये हमेशा से लाइक दिस इज जस्ट हाउ इट हैज बीन. If we don't question the historical context within which a certain kind of terrorism has emerged, then ना तो हम किसी को accountable hold कर रहे हैं, ना ही हम उसका main issue understand bhi kar pa rahe, because even now when people speak of quote unquote Islamic terrorism, no one is asking why it emerged. People are only talking about how it is maybe naturally linked to Islam, which is what the argument is, or they are just generally expressing कि ये तो ऐसे ही है, या ये group of people ही ऐसे हैं, something of that sort. So you are also naturalizing violence and associating it with a certain group of people, but no one is asking कि ये किस context में इस type का violence came into being. So lastly he says the answer to the question of terrorism is not military solutions, because those will not be solutions, they are counterproductive. And जो हमने I think a few slides ago we discussed that terrorism and the nation state का response to it are pretty much the same thing. So it is something like that जो इस chapter में भी महमूद ममदानी says that same ideology जो है terrorism का, या फिर the kind of violence that terrorism institutionalizes, sorry, the terrorism in states, वो same चीज nation state के through institutionalize हो जा रहा है. And these are again the concepts of collective punishment and us versus them का binaries, civilian life का कोई अहमियत ना होना. तो these cannot be our response to terrorism, because these are equally disruptive and destructive, if not more. Lastly, he says अगर terrorism का हल हम लोग ढूंढने निकल रहे हैं, तो the way it cannot be military solutions के through, it can only occur sort of after we ask where does it stem from, and after we at least talk about accountability a little bit, because at the time this book was written, and even now I think accountability is nowhere in the picture. And जो टेररिज्म है वो एक मॉडर्न पॉलिटिकल फिनोमेना है, वो it is not since time immemorial, it is not something that has existed since forever, it is something that has come into place in very recent history, and वो कोल्ड वॉर की कॉन्टेक्स्ट में ही शेप लिया है, and we tend to forget this context of the Cold War, the context of US interventions, and the kind of violence that they conducted in these regions. So, if we're talking about modern day terrorism, it is very important to ask where it emerges from, not just regionally and in terms of the local geographical sites, but where it emerges from, in the sense which context it emerges from. So, just to wrap up, the last sort of argument he makes is that it is important to hold, to ask what role the US played in all of this, because it is not being asked, and because even if we know it, it is not something that the US is being incriminated for, or the West at large. They are not being incriminated for it. They are not, of course, not being held responsible for it. And the cycle continues of just us, when we talk about terrorism, just saying that this is how it is in that region, this is how it has always been in that region. ये geographical area, ये Middle East हमेशा ही unstable रहा है. So to avoid those kinds of conversations where we naturalize violence and we normalize violence and a lack of stability in certain regions, it is important to ask what caused it in the first place. So that's it for the book.
Jazakallah khair, Sarah. This was so insightful. मतलब, right from giving us an introduction to किस context में हुआ, then running through all the chapters and then the key arguments. I found it like very, very interesting and very impactful. हमेशा like we at some level थोड़े idea से familiarity होती है, but then hearing it also coherently, and then it brings you back so much clarity, so much clarity of thought just by hearing you engaging with this subject. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah Sanya Abhi. It was a very interesting read, and if anyone else wants to share their experience of reading it, at least जब हम पढ़ रहे थे, it was so eye-opening, because like you said, ये in general we know these things, but the detail of it and the specific context, it is very like interesting to read, and also makes me realize कि we know the general sort of things that are happening in the world, but to know it in such depth and to understand its gravity was a great read. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of the things which stayed with me, number one, एक चीज जो तुमने बोला कि जो पूरी बुक भी कैप्चर करती है वही गुड मुस्लिम बैड मुस्लिम, मतलब एक अच्छा मुसलमान कौन है, जो इस्लाम प्रैक्टिस नहीं करता है, जो मॉडर्न है, जो सेक्युलर है, इन अ डिफरेंट वे, एंड एक बैड मुस्लिम वो है जो दाढ़ी रखता हो, या एक तरह से बोला जाता है सोसाइटी में, ऐसे नहीं बोल रहे आप बुरे मुसलमान हो, बट बहुत तरीके से बोला जा सकता है ये बात। और इस या तो ये पूरा मतलब ये कैसे कॉलोनियलिज्म से आल्सो लिंक्ड है, कि कॉलोनियलिज्म वाज अ वे जहाँ पे आप डिवाइड कर रहे हो और आप कॉन्कर कर रहे हो थ्रू, कि कुछ लोग, आप उनके अंदर से ही कुछ लोगों को अपने तरफ कर रहे हो, एंड हाउ दिस इज आल्सो अ
So,
कंटिन्यूएशन ऑफ दैट। या वाज समवन स्पीकिंग? या सारा?
no, please go on. I was just muting myself.
हाँ, so again, this reminder कि we don't have to be the good Muslim, bad Muslim. We don't have to go by these definitions. Muslims को खुद हम लोग के अंदर बहुत holistically देखना है, क्योंकि अक्सर मैं क्या देखती हूँ, बहुत सारे लोग हैं ना इस चीज को imbibe कर लिए हैं अपने अंदर, तो उन अगर कुछ जैसे कभी भी कुछ ऐसे थोड़ी बहुत बात होती है कुछ शरीयत की उसकी, तो मैं देखती हूँ कि उनका इस्लामोफोबिया एक तरह से झलकता है, और जो वो खुद गुड मुस्लिम बैड मुस्लिम ट्रोप यूज कर रहे हैं उनको नहीं पता है, बट ये कितना एक आर्टिफिशियल कंस्ट्रक्शन है इस चीज का। और दूसरी बात, जब आई वाज लिसनिंग टू यू, एक बात बहुत क्लियरली क्लैरिफाई हुई है कि पॉलिटिकल इस्लाम जो था वो उसमें बहुत पॉलिटिकल इस्लाम कितना एक्टिवली स्पॉन्सर्ड था बाय यूएस। मतलब यूएस नहीं चाह रहा था कि नेशनलिस्ट या लेफ्टिस्ट फोर्सेस जो हैं वो टेक ओवर करें अफगानिस्तान में, एंड इट एक्टिवली लाइक इट गेव फंड्स। और मैंने एक जगह ये भी पढ़ा कि उनकी जो मदरसे में जो किताबें भी दी हैं, दे कंस्ट्रक्टेड एक बहुत ही वायलेंट फॉर्म ऑफ इस्लाम, एंड देन दे गिव देम कि ये तुम्हारा मजहब है, तुम इसको पढ़ो, एंड देन सो दैट कि वो लोग रेडिकलाइज हो सके और वो लोग नेशनलिस्ट और लेफ्टिस्ट फोर्सेस से लड़े। और उसके बाद जब वो लोग फोर्सेस से चले गए, एंड देन यूएस इटसेल्फ इज लाइक अपना हाथ उठा के हटा के, दे लाइक these are radical Islamist groups. I mean, you created them, there are pictures of you with them. एंड अभी तक उसका इम्प्लीकेशन हम लोग की लाइफ में ऐसा पड़ता है कि इवन जो हम लोग देखते हैं कभी कभार इंडिया में अटैक हो जाता है, तो हम लोग बोलते हैं कि अरे पाकिस्तान के कुछ एक्सट्रीमिस्ट ग्रुप्स हैं। तो वो कौन एक्सट्रीमिस्ट ग्रुप्स हैं? वो कुछ एक्सट्रीमिस्ट ग्रुप्स हैं जिसका पाकिस्तान गवर्नमेंट खुद इट के नॉट होल्ड इट, उसके पास पावर ही नहीं है। क्योंकि एक चीज जो चल चुकी है वो चल निकली है, अब पाकिस्तान गवर्नमेंट के हाथ में भी नहीं है वो एक्सट्रीमिस्ट ग्रुप्स, एंड देन इट इज स्पॉन्सरिंग सम काइंड ऑफ टेररिस्ट एक्ट इन इंडिया, एंड उसका असर ये हो रहा है कि इंडियन मुस्लिम्स फिर से एक बार कटघरे में खड़े हो जा रहे हैं। मतलब हाउ it is only damaging, and yeah, damaging Muslims further. So that also like एक thought bubble आया था इस चीज को सुन के। um, lot of interesting points, political Islam versus religious Islam, कि कैसे Islam as a faith is different from Islamism as a political ideology। and मैं ये सोच रही हूँ कि अब इतना तानिश कर दिया गया है कि अगर जब एक एक्चुअल इस्लामिक पॉलिटी होगी, what would it look like? क्योंकि मेरे अंदर, सबके अंदर, क्योंकि जब भी हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि इफ there is the name of Sharia, there is the name of Islamic government, it is the worst kind of government, it's the worst for women। तो अंदर में एक वो हो गया है कि क्योंकि ये लोग ना पढ़े हैं प्रॉपर इस्लाम, ना इनका उस तरह का बैकग्राउंड है। एंड आई एम जस्ट थिंकिंग दैट इंशाल्लाह इफ someday there is actual Islamic governance, it would be so different, and inshallah we'll someday be there to witness it in some form or the other। एंड लाइक यू सेड, हर चीज का कॉन्टेक्स्ट होता है, हर चीज को हम लोग को हिस्टोरिसाइज करना ही चाहिए। किन्होंने ट्रेन किया, किन्होंने फाइनेंस किया, किन्होंने सपोर्ट किया इन मिलिटेंट्स को, और जो आज आपके एनिमीज हैं। इतना इम्पोर्टेंट कॉन्टेक्स्ट। थैंक यू सो मच, दिस वाज सच अ रिफ्रेशिंग थिंग टू हियर। मम्मी,
Jazakallah Sanya for sharing your thoughts. Yes, it is all very interesting, and like you said, हमको भी ये I think it is in one of the chapters in this book that I read कि जो उन्होंने एक बहुत specific almost like a syllabus बनाकर they were sort of giving it out to the people in Afghanistan, and then saying that this is all there is to your religion, and it is so, I mean हमको ये it is not a very like nuanced idea that I'm expressing, but ये हमको बहुत shocking लगता है the way the US has just time and again escaped accountability। मतलब not just in the case of Afghanistan or in any other Middle Eastern country, but even Latin America, the US has destabilized इतने सारे
and
governments like,
Vietnam, and so yeah,
and yes,
absolutely।
yes. I mean, every few years, there are some like CIA documents that are being made available to the public, and it's like it is telling us what we have known all along, that the US had a part to play, and they were the ones who were like undermining existing governments, and it's like ये कितने सारे countries में हो चुका है, and how come there are no repercussions for it? Very
And how
mind-boggling.
come they are still seen as the good guys? उनका सॉफ्ट पावर क्यों है अभी तक? कि अभी भी कोई इंस्टाग्राम कमेंट खोलो तो अभी भी वी आर फेसिंग द सेम इस्लामोफोबिया कि इमिग्रेंट्स के बारे में, ये मतलब why is it that people are not seeing through? That is so surprising। मैं
Exactly,
भी
it is
accountability आएगा।
surprising and so frustrating।
I
मतलब
think it's
some
got to do
ऐसे
with racism because like Gore people are like more this it's like because of colonization it's instilled in our mind that they are better, we are less. So to
हाँ,
make them
that
we justify their actions कि अरे वो लोग like those people are better or something like that. Maybe we give excuses, and then when it comes to us, we hold ourselves more accountable.
Yes, that is true. They do escape a lot of accountability just by virtue of being from the West. मतलब वो थोड़ा like colonial hangover भी है, वो बहुत सारी चीज़ों का mix है, but colonial hangover is also in there in that mix. Then there is the general sort of way we feel less than. So we also, I guess, as um a collective, the East maybe we are not comfortable enough to even think that we can hold them accountable to some extent. कि हमारा वो position ही नहीं है that maybe we question these nations that have held power for so long. But yeah, very interesting to think about. So
तो
if
also there was Holocaust के बारे में लिखा हुआ है ना कि the reason Holocaust was made so unique was because people who were killed were the white people. मतलब even though they were Jews, they were Europeans who looked like Europeans. So that really caused them like that's why people hate Hitler so much because he killed white people, and that became like a huge outrage ke, oh my god, they just killed, how bad he is, he killed our people, like even though they were Jews. Magar isse pehle there were so many times that people of color were being killed, but no one even talked about it.
Oh, absolutely. I think, like this, though, you are absolutely right that it was white people, even if they were Jewish people, it was white people that were being slaughtered. So it was a huge thing. And then the whole thing of, never again, we have to make sure that things like these don't happen again. But at the same time, there are so many that have happened to like people in the East or in Latin America, people of color in general, ki Trail of Tears, Congo में जिस टाइप का violence हुआ था and almost like a huge chunk of the population was wiped out, and all of these places, even indigenous Americans ka genocide, I mean, these are taken so lightly in comparison to the Holocaust. Of course, the Holocaust is just as bad. That is also violence. This is also violence. But the way they are treated are so different
Yeah,
that
because
no
the
one would even
common
think.
people, everyone knows about Holocaust, but like the common people wouldn't even think that America mein there was a native population who were wiped out and then these settlers have occupied it. We don't even think that way normally.
Exactly, like exactly, you are so right. Half the time we're not even familiar with the idea that the Americans that we see now are not the native population, because this is not something that we have at any point interacted with this concept ki they came and they were settlers, they like came in from Europe, they when they and even when we do like talk about them coming in from Europe, there is like an entire chunk that is absent, which is that there was a native population. It's like a very watered down version of history that we have been handed down कि ठीक है, even if they came from a different place, they came and they settled here and they made their own whatever, but no talk about the existing population. They had their own rich cultures, they were living in harmony with the natural landscape of their land. मतलब ये चीज़ तो हम लोगों को पता भी नहीं था, and अभी भी बहुत लोगों को नहीं पता. It's very very interesting to see the kind of the way these similar violences are treated just because the populations that face it are different.
किसी ने सवाल किया है कि व्हाट डज इट मीन व्हेन दे से टेररिज्म इज रीसेंट। मतलब पहले भी तो होते थे ना एक्सट्रीमली वायलेंट क्रूअल पीपल, और वर दे सिंपली कॉल्ड वॉर क्रिमिनल्स। तो टेररिज्म रीसेंट है, मेरा जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि मतलब वायलेंस हमेशा से रहा है। और पहले अगर कोई राजा करता है तो उसको कुछ नाम दे दिया जाएगा, कोई स्टेट करता है तो उसको कुछ नाम दे दिया जाएगा, और वायलेंस को। और अगर नॉन स्टेट एक्टर्स करते हैं तो आई थिंक उसको टेररिज्म बोलते हैं, बट स्पेशली हेवली लेबल्ड जब वो ग्लोबल साउथ में हो रहा है या मुस्लिम कंट्रीज में हो रहा है। या दैट इज मतलब डज ममदानी स्पेसिफिकली टॉक ऑफ दिस थिंग, सारा?
The way like what we categorize as terrorism,
Yeah,
I
but the
think
difference
what
between
we touched
violence
upon earlier.
generally and terrorism specifically.
No, I mean he does like sort of define terrorism and what he means when he is talking about terrorism, but ये वाला a more general sort of difference between the two is not really like talked about in the book essay in detail, which is also interesting.
But he goes on in detail about how this terrorism was created, right?
Yeah.
Can I add a word for this? This is Romana. I
Yes,
think,
please.
yeah, first of all, thank you so much, Sarah. This was so enlightening. Mashallah. So, over here, I think the question, especially terrorism, why it is being, planted more as a recent term, is because it is being tried to align more with Islamic reactionary violence rather than, like terming the actions of the Western powers against the Middle Eastern societies or wherever their aggression has been led. So there is a term over here. Terrorism is not a cultural residue in modern politics, but rather it is a modern construction. So, in other words, Islamist violence arises from more recent political and social struggles, not from ancient tradition. So, this is what Mamdani is trying to say, but it is actually the opposite of what the Western agenda is trying to portray.
सही बात है। अगर इस्लाम वायलेंट होता तो 1400 साल में क्यों नहीं इतना वायलेंस होता भाई। अभी ही लास्ट 2 साल में ही ये सारे टेररिस्ट ग्रुप क्यों उठ खड़े हो रहे हैं। डेफिनेटली बिकॉज देयर आर सम अदर
Exactly.
ग्रुप्स आर प्लेइंग अ रोल हियर।
Yeah. Jazakallah, Romana. Yeah, the way you said it, it made so much sense. Like, it explained it also to some extent for me. Yeah, Jazakallah.
Okay.
So, if anyone else wants to pitch in, please do. And so if we're starting to close the session, I would also just like to just I hope you can see my screen. Key suggestions for the next month. So all of these जो यहाँ पे है screen पे, these are ones from earlier polls that we have done. जहाँ पे if we've given 3 options and 1 has been picked, these are some of the others that were not picked. So I figured instead of coming up with 3 new titles every month, then जो पुराने वाले नहीं vote किए गए हैं, then we might never end up reading them. So I've put those here, and maybe we can read one of these in July. But again, these are just 4 options that I could remember. If any of you, and I'll put this in the group again, so even if someone's not joined the meeting, it's okay. If any of you have any other recommendations, any specific book that you would like to read, so please, you can either abhi aap mention kar de, ya fir you can put it in the group chat, and I'll put these there as well, and we can all maybe by tomorrow or day after decide which book we're doing for the month of July.
एक कैटेगरी जो हम लोग सोच रहे थे, इट वाज ऑन सोशल मूवमेंट्स एंड द पावर ऑफ सोशल मूवमेंट्स, collective action and how, yeah.
Right. You're right. So we'll yes, if we're going to be doing it that way, then maybe not all of these suggestions to either hai, but we will do it like in tune with that theme. So then maybe a few other titles if I can think of, if anyone else can think of, तो फिर हम लोग ऐसे ही book choose करेंगे जो फिर उस theme में वो fit हो, and then it can be part of the larger discussion that we're having here throughout the month. Yeah.
या मतलब ये भी ऑप्शंस रखना, लेट्स सी व्हाट पीपल थिंक, बट या मतलब वो भी होना चाहिए बिकॉज वी आर सीइंग कलेक्टिव एक्शन, और बहुत होपलेस टाइम्स है ना, वी आर सीइंग सो मच ऑफ वायलेंस, so just learning about कि क्या collective action कर सकता है और कहाँ पे करा है in the past, maybe there has been some successful victories and revolutions. तो अच्छा एक थोड़ा सा उम्मीद बढ़ाने वाला रीड हो जाएगा. But I'm fine with
हाँ
any of it if the group chooses it.
वो
Yeah.
भी सही बात है. That's true. I think हाँ, I think that's very important. बीच में एक थोड़ा hopeful agent sort of book will definitely help. And I think इधर जो चार हैं इसमें से 2 are my own suggestions. So what I can do is I can replace them with 2 that fall into that category of collective action वाले books, and the other 2 which are suggestions by other members of the book club, we'll keep those in, and then उनका we can do a poll. So maybe by evening or by tomorrow we can put up the poll and then decide कौन सा book we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jazakallah khair once again, Sarah. It was brilliantly explained.
Jazakallah khair everyone for joining. Thank you so much for joining, and I'm so glad that we're doing this. Next month, inshallah, we'll. I know this one we took 2 months, and it was because I couldn't take the session last month. So Jazakallah for being so patient with me as well, because like just for understanding and then also showing up today, even though we're doing this a month later than we should have. So Jazakallah for all of that, and I hope we'll all keep reading, and even if we don't read the whole book, we'll still keep showing up for ourselves and for us as a collective. So
Yeah.
Jazakallah khair.
One other thing.
Yeah.
कि हम लोग नेक्स्ट, क्योंकि हम लोग साल के मिड में पहुंच चुके हैं, व्हाट वी ऑलवेज डू इज कि वी कीप अ प्लानिंग सेशन कि नेक्स्ट 6 मंथ्स में क्या टॉपिक से एंगेज करना है और किस तरह का. तो हम लोग नेक्स्ट 2 वीक जो है, अगर आप लोग जुड़ना चाहें तो एक तो हम लोग दीनी हल्का में डिसाइड करने वाले हैं कि हम लोग को क्या क्या चीजें करनी चाहिए. जैसे लास्ट टाइम हम लोग ने सूरे रहमान और सूरे यासीन का हिफ्ज किया था. तो एक तो इट वाज एन आइडिया व्हिच इमर्ज फ्रॉम दीज फीडबैक सेशंस. वैसे ही इस बार हम लोग फिर नेक्स्ट 6 मंथ्स की प्लानिंग कर रहे हैं कि हफ्ते में एक दीनी हल्का का सेशन होता है, तो वो 6 महीने में हम लोग क्या गोल्स अचीव करना चाहते हैं, क्या करना चाहते हैं. इट वुड बी ग्रेट बिकॉज द मोर द पीपल द मोर द आइडियाज. फिर उसके बाद जो नेक्स्ट टू नेक्स्ट वीक है उसमें हम लोग बुक क्लब एंड सोशल साइंस हल्का का भी प्लानिंग करने वाले हैं फॉर द नेक्स्ट 6 मंथ्स. सो इट वुड बी ग्रेट अगर आप लोग जुड़ो और उसमें फिर से सजेशंस दो. मतलब हम लोग बुक तो ऑफ कोर्स कल ही डिसाइड कर लेंगे, लेकिन फॉर द नेक्स्ट 6 मंथ्स तो बहुत स्ट्रक्चर्ड तरीके से बढ़ने से क्या होगा, आपका भी प्लान होगा एंड देन यू विल बी अ पार्ट ऑफ दैट प्लान एंड आवर प्लान विल आल्सो गेट स्ट्रेंथेंड. या जज़ाकल्लाह खैर फॉर दैट.
Yes, great. Thank you for letting us know, Sanya Api. Inshallah, we'll all join, and it will be a nice collective way of planning what we're doing for the next 6 months. Jazakallah.
इंशाल्लाह.
Okay, Allah Hafiz everybody. We'll
खुदा हाफिज.
end the
अस्सलाम
meeting.
वालेकुम व रहमतुल्लाह.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.